Welcome to the Social World Podcast. I'm Dave Niven, and it's always good to have you with me. Now, today, you can have a listen to us on iTunes. You can download this on iTunes. You can do it from the website, www.socialworldpodcast.com. And as always, remember that SpeakPipe facility that's on the website there, that you can leave a direct message or suggestions about either future work, future guests, or feedback on the guests on the programme. Now, today, I'm joined by Justin Humphreys. Now, Justin is the Executive Director for Safeguarding for the Church's Child Protection Advisory Service. And I'm not sure if a lot of people realise just how much work that this organisation does and just how well networked they are within the kind of Christian safeguarding community. They're a charity. And, well, let's find out about it. Justin, welcome to the programme.
Thanks very much, Dave.
Now, just explain, could you just a little bit, we're going to call it CCPAS, right, the Church's Child Protection Advisory Service, but just a little bit for people that might not be aware of what you do. Could you just sort of take us through it for a minute?
Sure, of course. Well, we will be next year, that's 2017, celebrating our 40th anniversary. So established in 1977, primarily at that point as a provider of residential care for children and young people, those with disabilities more than any other. But, you know, as time has progressed, we've evolved, and sort of in the mid-80s, we moved into the world of what was then commonly described as child protection, and through to what we do today, which is to provide a comprehensive service for members and for others who may need assistance with a range of safeguarding matters. So in broad terms, our service delivery is divided into a number of key areas. So we are one of the largest DBS umbrella bodies in the country.
Sorry, could you just say what that, the DBS checks? So
yes, DBS, Disclosure and Bar Service.
Yes.
Yeah, so for those that are familiar with that, yeah.
Okay.
So we processed in excess of 55,000 checks last year, so that kind of puts us in sort of the top running for that. We also provide a wide range of training for churches, charities, faith-based groups, those of no faith, whoever in fact wants to make use of those. So training hundreds of people every week in a range of things. We also have a 24-hour helpline that's open and available to anybody to call in relation to safeguarding matters. And then the last thing that we do in terms of our service delivery is that we have what we call specialist services, which essentially is a consultancy service to take on more complex safeguarding matters. So things like risk assessment, audit, review, management investigation, complaints, that sort of thing. So we're providing a broader and broader range of services all the time. And although we're focused primarily at the Christian community, we don't work exclusively there. Our connections across the Christian community, but also with secular agencies, if we can call them that, statutory agencies, police forces, MAPA boards, local and national government.
So it's really a network of all the kind of safeguarding agencies and those responsible for it across the country.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things that we have always prided ourselves in, and I think is one of our key strengths, is that we are truly independent. So many people will make the assumption that we are in some way connected to, let's say, the Church of England, because that is possibly what's most familiar to many people, but we're not. We're not affiliated to any denomination or any particular group. We are independent, non-denominational, and we seek to provide a service to whoever requests it.
Okay. Could you just talk a little bit about, just to clarify things, because you're a charity, where the funding sources come from?
Sure. Well, the majority of our income is what we would describe as voluntary income, and comes from donations that are made to us by our member organisations. So at this point in time, we have in excess of 8,000 members. Now, they will be a range of churches, charities, other organisations, interested individuals who who join us to receive support and a range of member benefits. So they will make an annual donation, and that is primarily where our voluntary income comes from. So it's probably accounting for something like 90%. The remainder of our income is generated from other services, such as our training and consultancy. But clearly, because we are a charity, we're not a profit-making organisation. So, anything that's right side of the balance sheet, so to speak, is reinvested to assist us providing wider services.
So it's 90%, 10% on specialist services, right? Okay.
So, yeah, something like that. 90% will be our member donations that we receive on an annual basis.
8,000 8,000 affiliated members. I mean, that's substantial. Now, in terms of the United Kingdom, are you present, if you like, in all 4 countries?
Yes, we are. I think we are certainly stronger in England and Wales than we are in Scotland and Northern Ireland, but we do have a presence in all 4. And part of our strategic plan currently going forward is to explore ways in which we can increase the support that we provide, particularly in Scotland and Northern Ireland, to look at whether there are things that we can be doing, that we should be doing, that our members in those various countries would like us to do for them. But yeah, I mean, we've pretty much from the off, we've had some involvement in all 4 nations.
Okay. So just before we go on to some more detailed kind of discussion about the work that you do, I mean, just to sort of complete this kind of the building the house picture, I mean, do you tend to have any international kind of contacts and affiliations?
Yeah, we do. The work that we are doing, as I said in the introductory response, is becoming broader and broader. So one of the things that we have seen a particular increase in is requests for us to provide primarily training and what we call specialist services to organisations who are either based and operating overseas, or who are in some way connected to a UK-based organisation but providing services to vulnerable groups overseas. So that might involve what we would describe as mission or missionary organisations, may involve international schools, may involve other organisations providing activities for young people primarily. So we've done work in all sorts of interesting places. So thinking about many of the sort of the Central European countries, we've even travelled and undertaken work in Africa. So it's an area that's growing for us.
Good. Well, the reason I asked that, as much as just interested in the range of activity that you do, is that the podcast now has been downloaded into 99 countries. And I'm looking for the 100th. So anybody listening, please, I'm looking for the 100th. But it means that in more, in some places obviously more than others, but we get a spread of interest. And therefore we will give all the sort of CCPAS details at the end of the podcast and in the text on the website. So anybody listening that has reason to be interested in what you hear today and what you do and what Justin's talking about, then obviously they can get in touch with you. So that was partly the reason I asked for that, as well as seeing what the structure was. Now, the work you do, Justin, I mean, I know that CCPAS is independent. I know that you are primarily there as a safeguarding body, and that all the work you do is geared towards the safety of vulnerable people in the community. But you will also obviously be aware that there's been a lot of bad press for the church community, if you want to put it that way, in terms of child protection, especially over the last kind of couple of decades. And more people are having the strength and the courage to come forward and talk about difficult experiences that they had. What sort of impact has that had on your service?
It's had a huge impact. As many other organisations and agencies that we work with have experienced, I think there really has been a watershed in the sort of the post-Savile period, if I can refer to it as that. I mean, even prior to that, clearly an increase in work. It's sad to see the reality that is that many churches and faith-based organisations will be seeking to provide safer environments for vulnerable people. But there are still those who are very much behind the curve on developing safer practices. And there are still those areas where it would probably be easier for dangerous and harmful practice to occur than in other places. But I think what I would say about this, particularly in the post-Savile era, is that what we have seen is a huge increase in courage, in the ability of victims and survivors of abuse to speak out, often for the first time, about their experiences of abuse at the hands of those within the wider church community. And it is a great thing that they are finding voice, as painful as that is for them. But as a response, then, what we find ourselves involved in as an organisation is working with statutory agencies, often with local authority designated officers in England and their equivalent in other nations, to manage through where there have been allegations, disclosures, where there are clearly issues of or relevant conduct, through to assisting churches to manage and cope with the fallout once that has taken place. And if just to take you into the context of church for a moment, churches typically will operate in a sort of a pseudo family type arrangement. So relationships become very close. Relationships are often established over long periods of time. So you can imagine then when abuse occurs within that environment, it is devastating for all those in the surrounding area. The collateral damage is huge. So, of course, we have to accept that we still understand the majority of abuse takes place within family, friend, known networks. But for church, that is very much in the frame there. We are talking about family. We are talking about friends. We are talking about known networks. So our work has increased significantly throughout the spectrum as a result of a willingness to open the lid on things that have been kept under wraps for many years.
Do you find your trainers find that, as you say, you train hundreds of people every week, that there's an increased nervousness now about those working in the church or in the church environment or affiliated with the church, those that come on the training, that somehow or other, the old tarred with the same brush kind of impression that people feel now far less trusting, which is a huge anathema, I suspect, to churches, obviously, because one of the big things that religious bodies, not only rely on but need is the trust of the community. And you feel that there's been a kind of a devaluing of that within the people that you're now listening to and training?
Generally speaking, no, I wouldn't say that is the case. I think what we are seeing, though, however, is a much greater level of awareness to the issues, whereas even 5, maybe 10 years ago, those who were attending church or who were, receiving support services from church or church-based organisations, they might take the view, well, of course, that kind of thing could never be happening here because it's a church after all. I think now we are moving into an era where there is a much more realistic, balanced and aware society that's being worked with. So rightly, more people are asking more appropriate questions about what arrangements do churches have in place. Do they have a safeguarding policy and procedure? Do they provide training for their staff? Do they recruit them more safely? So we're seeing much more of these sorts of questions. I think what I would say in terms of those that we're training, though, David, is that there is an increasing awareness of complexity of task. And yeah, I guess that for some it might also be described as a bit of a fear factor in there too, um, because it's not easy stuff. It's not easy work often. People will enter the volunteering workforce, particularly with all sorts of motivations, and we would hope that for many of them they are good. But that's now got to be mixed with a level of seriousness about, well, we need to be doing this properly. Society, the communities that we serve would expect us to be doing it properly, and therefore we've got to demonstrate that we are.
Yeah. Someone like me, who, if you like, essentially is outside of the, if you like, the church community, but looking in, but like to takes a close interest, obviously, in safeguarding. The impression I get is that newer entrants, like most organisations, like younger people coming in either to work in the church community or for the church community, are perhaps more aware, more enlightened, whatever, but there's still a residual problem with the older members. Now, paradoxically, obviously, the more senior people within the church, up, say, at bishop level or whatever, appear to have some greater difficulty in accepting change and accepting the new landscape. Is that a fair analogy?
I think that's almost certainly the case in some respects, yes. Um, Change doesn't come easy to many people. The safeguarding landscape has changed so significantly over the last 5, 10, 15 years, as we know, that I think there are some who very much struggle with it. And we see the full spectrum of responses, as you might expect. So, ranging from those who say, I don't want to know anything about it, it has no place in what we do, through to those that are prepared to accept that they don't fully understand it, but acknowledge their need to understand it and get on board, right through to those who, yeah, generally speaking, would be the younger generation moving into leadership roles within church and community, who say, we get this. We see its importance. We know that it is part of what we have to do now. So let's get on with it. Let's not leave it as one of those background things that nobody really understands. So a huge shift, actually. But there are still those, possibly those of an older generation who may struggle and who may not then be able to create the environments that are as safe as we would want them to be.
Okay. Well, let's put you on the spot again then. I've got the older generation talked about. Is there a gender difference within the church, do you think, in acceptance of what is and what should be?
I don't see that clearly. Um, so no, I don't think I could. I don't think I could rest on any clear examples that would suggest to me that there is an issue there. I mean, I think that there are still some unhelpful stereotypes, maybe, that are held around gender, particularly in the context of who may be offending, let's say, against children and young people. There is still a residual belief that this is, middle aged to older men, and we are slowly kind of trying to break down that misperception, that myth, to say, look, we aren't in the business of being suspicious about people, but we certainly can't be in the business of pandering to and believing these misplaced stereotypes. In actual fact, harm can be caused to vulnerable people by all sorts of other people. And that respect for uncertainty that Lord Layman talked about in the process of the Victoria inquiry is what we try to instill even today. That's how we need to operate. The belief that it could happen, and actually that there are no single typologies for offenders. So if there were to be a gender issue anywhere in all of this, that would be where it's probably most apparent.
Fair enough. Okay, well let's talk for a second about your impressions about getting the message across. We've mentioned the kind of the age issue, the differences in people coming in now. The younger members of if let's the broadest church community, let's just call it that, in terms of digital kind of awareness. Because you know, as we know, you know, so many people get their information, get their opinions formed, and their knowledge essentially from some form of media or other. I mean, written and broadcast media obviously are still fairly powerful, but digital media is racing up, and social media is racing up, you know, to compete quite happily with it. And a lot of churches, to my view, don't necessarily have as modern a presence as they could in the digital world in order to be able to get their messages across, but also to show people what they're doing about safeguarding and to illustrate, you know, their commitment to whatever that happened to be within their own particular church. Is that something that you would consult on as an organization?
Yeah, very much so. And I think you're right. There are still many churches who don't embrace the full opportunities that are provided by digital media. That would be true to say. But at the same time, what we are seeing is some really creative and innovative approaches to that sort of thing. So, you know, 10 years ago, when social media was really just sort of entering the scene, we as an organisation may even have taken the view, well, you know, don't go there just yet. We don't know enough about it, so just avoid it. There are clearly inherent risks. We're now in a position where we're saying, look, you know, the social media environment, particularly, is where a lot of people live and connect and communicate, share experience, particularly the younger generation. So we're now in a position where we're saying, look, it's here to stay. This is going to be the way of the future. So let's engage in that safely. So what are the things that we can be doing to make the environment safer for young people, particularly? But I think in terms of how churches generally engage in you know, promoting their safeguarding arrangements, let's say even at a basic level through their church website, you know, what we are seeing is an increase in churches providing clear information on their websites around their commitment to safeguarding. So just as you would expect to see with a school, you know, somewhere you wouldn't want to have to dig too far into a website before you come up against their safeguarding policy. So we would advocate the same for church. You know, communities who are using church-based services need to be given a level of confidence about how you are going to be doing it. Safeguarding is pretty much at the top of the agenda these days. So we still see a variety of approaches taken, but there are some real signs of interesting and innovative practice out there.
Okay. Now, without naming names, because I'm not particularly interested in that at the moment, but I'm wondering if you would give us one good and one difficult kind of organisations that you've come across in terms of what's working well for some particular church organisation and what's still sort of back in the kind of Neanderthal times in terms of safeguarding for others. I mean, what would you like to see change with some, without naming any names, and what would you like to see more universally accepted from some of the more kind of front runners, if you like, in terms of good practice?
Okay, that's a really difficult one, isn't it? You really put me on the spot there.
Well, yeah, no name. You can name names if you like. I mean, but up to you.
I think probably best that I don't. But as you would expect, you know, we do work with a whole range. Um, the ones that we work with who um, we possibly have the most difficulties, I think, are those who, for whatever reason, fail to um, lead out effectively on the clear messages around safeguarding. So maybe linked to this generational question that we were talking about just a moment ago. Those organisations or denominations or groups who just don't fully understand the need for good, consistent, clear messages to be articulated from the top, if you like, and that permeate an entire organization. So we will see a level of disconnect between what the workers on the ground, so to speak, might be wanting to practice and the understanding of that from the higher levels of leadership.
Okay.
When you have that kind of disconnect, you will often run into difficulties around policy, practice, procedure, but also softer elements of culture. Culture is so important, as we all know. And if the leadership fails to initiate and maintain a safer culture, there are often real difficulties faced at the front line. So there are some areas where that is still a real problem.
And I presume you would say the opposite, the exact opposite of that for those that are in the forefront of good practice. Is that?
Yeah, I guess I would. I mean, at the end of the day, this isn't rocket science, is it, David? I think that there are some fairly simple and clear messages that will really help us along the way. So yeah, a mirror image probably.
Okay. Right. Last one or two questions. Okay. Here's your opportunity to sort of speak out on behalf of CCPAS. What would you say to people who, within the church communities, in their huge variety, if you like, up and down the four nations, what would you say to those that at the moment aren't perhaps looking at your services? What would you say to them? Would you like to give a message to them as to why it would be beneficial for them to have a look at what you do?
Absolutely, I would. And we are very clear to say, we're not in the business of poaching services that may be being adequately provided by others already. But what we do say is that we provide what we believe to be a unique and comprehensive range of services. So I would especially reach out to any church, any faith-based organisation, charity, whatever, who doesn't have adequate support and arrangement. Say, please make contact with us, explore with us how we might be able to help. We are always willing to help, and we will do so to the best of our ability. So, we do believe that there is a real need for all such churches, regardless of denomination, tradition, what have you, to have a good grasp of these arrangements. So please just pick up the phone, give us a call, visit our website, see what we provide. We're a friendly bunch, really, and so we will. There are teeth there where they need to be, but other than that, we're here to help.
Okay. Final message then is for this new reshuffled government, and especially those who've got responsibilities for safeguarding. What would you like to say to them, Justin?
I think there would have to be a very clear message to them. Don't forget the church community in your policy making, in your decisions around workforce matters, in your understanding of what multi-agency or multidisciplinary safeguarding practice looks like. The church in the UK has for many years now been the single largest provider of services to children and young people outside of education, and increasingly for vulnerable adults, if we can describe them in that way. And I know that that's not really the PC term these days, but adults who may be vulnerable for a range of factors. The church is working with more vulnerable groups than any other. Yet there has often been, in my view, a sense that we are still regarded as the poor partner, that we aren't sufficiently professional to engage in the debate. And I would want to say to the new government, the cabinet, for those that are responsible for areas of work that we are working in, please don't forget us. Be in touch with us, as we have been previously. We have worked with Department of Health, Ministry of Justice, Home Office, DFE. We would want to continue having those conversations. But when you have a group of organisations who have such significant impact and opportunity, please embrace them and have conversations with us.
Okay. And finally, your contact details for CCPAS that I mentioned before, that I'll also put on the text on the website, but would you just like to say how people can get in touch with you if they want to?
Yeah, of course. There are obviously the key ways. So by telephone, you can contact us on 0845 120 4550, or if you visit the website, there's actually an alternative STD number whilst we transition to an 0300. There's the website itself, which is www.ccpas.co.uk. Or if you have specific questions that you want to fire into us via email, you can do that via info@ccpas.co.uk. We're also available on various social media networks, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Google+, or the usual places.
Justin Humphreys, thanks very much indeed for your company.